I'll try and tell you why it is that I think that. I'll try and focus on some broad themes that have been captured in the book. The first is that Shahid Siddiqui is part of the most interesting generation of the editors of this country. So he is a contemporary of people like Vinod Mehta, who is not with us anymore, M.J. Akbar, Shekhar Gupta, Shauri. Unlike most of them, Siddiqui is genuinely bilingual, which makes him attractive, at least to me, as both an intellectual and as a journalist. That he's able to express himself cleanly in two very different languages. The other thing he shares with some of those four names that I've taken is that his writing is extremely entertaining and it is anecdotal. If you read this book, which I have, it is entirely full of episodes that have been narrated, particularly the latter two-thirds of the book, from a point of view where the person writing knows and understands the characters that he's writing about. That is unusual for the reason that journalism offers many people a proximity to those in power, but it doesn't always give the journalist access to what the person is thinking, what the motivation of the actions are. And this book captures history in a way that is a classical memoir. Not too many of these books tend to be written in our country, in our part of the world, because people don't want to reveal what it is that they know. Yet another aspect of this period thing is that to my mind, and this is subjective, obviously, he has lived through, I think, the most interesting period of our democracy, and that would be from 1975 to 1992. That all of the things that we see around us today in the modern state take their form in some way beginning in 75 and I think ending in 92. 91, 92 is very crucial because I think we chose the neoliberal policies that we have still that we are still sailing with. And 92 obviously because it marks with a definite end the dominance of the Congress and the rise of the BJP. In keeping with his personality, this book is also written with a sense of politics not being as a battle between enemies, but something that is engaged in with opponents. When Deve Gowda's government was being pulled down, Jaswant Singh stood up and said to the Prime Minister, the vote was just about to be taken, he said that your enemies are behind you. He was referring to the treasury benches. We are only your opponents. I don't think that spirit that he was talking about, Jaswant Singh, has been carried forward by the BJP, particularly under Modi. And Siddiqui, in the last third of his book, tells us of the way in which he has seen the rise of the politics that today dominates this country, and I'll come to that again in a bit. Uh, because of the faith that he was born in, I think it's important to speak about his own reflections on what position the Indian Muslim should take with the BJP. He writes, and I think he's absolutely correct in saying that Muslims should not close their options, that they should keep them open. I think this is something that many of us have felt for many years, that if you have larger numbers of minorities, particularly Muslims, in the BJP, that might to some extent moderate the party. He chose himself not to do so, and I think he was once again right in doing that. And one reason for that, I think, is obvious, and we see it around us, that the BJP, it's the BJP that has closed the options for the Muslims. We've not had, this is quite a banal observation, but we've not had a Muslim in the Lok Sabha in the last three BJP governments on the treasury benches, 303, 282 and 240. We've not had a Muslim in the cabinet for many years now. And that is remarkable given the fact that if you look at minorities around the world and ask ourselves who is persecuted, the Uyghur in China are 1% of the population. The Jews in the Weimar Republic were less than that. We have 200 million Muslims. So to what end is this exclusion happening? That is an answer that does not come to us from the BJP. But this book tells us that actively Muslim intellectuals, people who are linked to politics, are thinking about these things and reflecting on them. Siddiqui also writes, of course, about what has happened to those who did join, Shahnawaz Hussain and Naqvi, and where it is that they stand today. One of the aspects of the book is the long form interview that he's done, most famously, obviously, with the Prime Minister before 2014. This is an interview that he was urged not to publish. He did so nonetheless, and I think that for many of us, and I don't think you have to be in journalism for this, it's a very vivid memory of the day that that interview came out and what it is that was said in that. Some of you may remember that in it, Mr. Modi told Shahid Siddiqui that Akhand Bharat was not something he was looking out for. It was Muslims who wanted it. And to Siddiqui's surprise, his justification for this line was that you want to unite the Muslims in South Asia, in Bangladesh and Pakistan. And Siddiqui writes that he was surprised, he was taken aback at being told this. My own view is that what is wrong to have a South Asia that is united, that it should not bother us in the least, that we do what is natural. What we have as the state of our subcontinent today is actually unnatural. All the things that, and I'm digressing a little bit from the book here, but all the things that we have a problem with, partition, multiple religions, multiple languages, a history that is violent, all of these things are also present in ASEAN, which is the largest trading bloc outside of Europe. If we have partition, Singapore was partitioned from Malaysia. If we accuse another state of cross-border terrorism, Indonesia under Suharto sent soldiers in Mufti who committed acts of terror in Singapore. They were caught and they were hanged. And when Lee Kuan Yew went to Jakarta, he sprinkled flowers on the graves of those soldiers that he had hung. So there are countries that have similar, they have Muslims, They have Christians in the Philippines. They've got 5 Buddhist majority states. They've got Hindus in Java. It's not as if we have a unique problem in South Asia, but we are unique in the sense that we don't want to move forward from it. And one reason I'm saying it here is that it is my opinion that you tend to have intellectually curious observations from our Muslim intellectuals more than you do from Hindus like me. And I think that is a shame, that if we had more people who were open-minded, as Shahid Siddiqui is, this country, this subcontinent would be a much better place. The last couple of things I will say is that Martin Luther King speaks of the long arc of history, that things tend to get better in time. If you look at it, if you look at the world in terms of decades and maybe centuries rather than years, we don't live long enough to be able to chronicle centuries, obviously, but Shahid Siddiqui chronicles the decades beginning with his career, which is now 55 years, of which the most interesting period, as I said, of our modern history is covered from 75 to 92. Though he has had a proximity to the people in power, as this book very clearly shows, this book also shows his independence from them. I think that is one more thing that separates him and his generation of editors, not all of them obviously, who had access but retained a intellectual bent which was not aligned to the government in a way that the media today is. Today we have much more media in this country, many more outlets than at the time when he began his first organ in 1971. But if you were to ask what it is that they do other than applaud the government, the answer is difficult to come by. He began, he went to Delhi University with 2 other people to leave the editors aside, with Yechuri and with Jaitley, both of whom are no more with us. And I think that there must have been something in that generation that gave them the drive, that gave them the capacity to be able to achieve what they did. The last thing I will say is that Shahid Siddiqui represents a sort of Indian secularism in its highest form. When we examine the man and his writing, when we examine what he does in terms of his responses, it is very hard, if you were to remove the name, if you were to remove the photograph, if you were to remove the gender, to be able to tell who is making this statement. There is nothing that comes out of him that is reflexive, that comes out of purely the identity that has been given to him externally. His warmth, his openness, and his intellectual curiosity are a reflection of the highest standards, both of this country and, unfortunately, of a media that should have had it much more, but does not anymore. Thank you.